Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. Hey, everybody. Welcome to TPIM Nighttime Edition. This is TruePowerIsMine, the host of the show. Hopefully, the facilitator of thought in your brain as well. Today, we're talking about understanding the process of hate. And there is a process to the hate. Absolutely. I want to start off tonight's presentation with thanking all the viewers, all the new subscribers, all the listeners. Our little show is, well, dare I say, it's growing. It's growing. So, without further ado, a part of the analysis and the commentary of this program, which is under fair use, because this is an educational show. Believe it or not, it should be a comedy show, but it truly is an educational broadcast. And I want to thank all the confidential informant and all the folks who write. The True Power is Mine, all one word, at gmail.com. All the tips, all just the general info. I mean, I quite literally sift through thousands of emails every day. Some just have simple notes. Some have links to other articles and research. And it is a tremendous value and asset to have access to your thoughts. And I thank you. We also might have noticed on the channel here. Let's go to our YouTube channel real quick. Brother Gregory, peace and power. Let's go to the YouTube channel. I want to show everybody just how easy it is to do what I'm talking about. So I want to go over here to the community tab. Click on the community tab. Brother James, peace and power. Yes, thank the Most High. We're able to come back together again and spread this knowledge. Now I want to show you this poll I put up yesterday. And this is valuable market research. All right, so we can get a general pulse. And yes, I did thumbs up this one. Because I thought it was awesome. The U.S. making headway to becoming a just society. 7% said yes, strongly agrees. 3% said yes, somewhat agrees. 3% says not my concern. 3% also said no, somewhat disagree. And a whopping 84% of the TPIM SR Live poll indicates hell to the no. I mean, the polls don't lie. This is your poll, folks. This is what others are thinking. And there's going to be more polls coming out, so we can get a better sense of what's going on. So let's start off with this comedy. And then we're going to get into what the sisters sent me. Yeah, I mean, that post is fascinating. I find it remarkable. All right. Let me get this right. All right. Now we're going to be turning it over to the computer for a moment. I just want you guys to put this in perspective, and this is part of the educational part in the commentary. If you look at the background, the actual courtroom, and look how kind of dirty and dingy it is. Belleville, Mississippi. You will, if that's what the best city courthouse looks like, then what does the people's homes must have looked like? I mean, even though they kept it clean, but when you have this grime in the air, you tend to be grimy. All right, let's continue. Oh, high-speed internet, what's up?
Good afternoon. This is Press Peterson, the voice of NBC Radio, reporting to you live from the courthouse in Beauville, Mississippi. The atmosphere is intense as Wilfred Smith, a colored man, is on trial for his life. Smith attacked a young white woman, one Oralee Dupree. The weather is sweltering on this July 5th.
Did you hear what he said? Oralee Dupree.
15th, in the year of our Lord 1926, here in Beauville. And as I gaze out on trial for his life, Smith attacked a young white woman, one Oralee Dupree. The weather is sweltering on this July 15th, in the year of our Lord 1926, here in Beauville. And as I gaze out over this courtroom, I can see that even some of the coloreds are sweating. This trial that has dragged on into its third exhausting week should come to an end today. Meanwhile, down here in Mississippi, we wait to see.
Well, that big-head Garvey, one mean white man.
Yeah.
You know what? He caught his brother with a colored dove one time and threatened to prosecute his own brother. 72 days later, his brother come up dead.
What are you going to weigh?
For what?
For the hanging.
Oh, well, that depends on whether they're taking pictures like the last time. I always wear pink when there's photographs.
Well, somebody's lying. If he'd really attacked her, she'd have committed suicide.
Anybody touch my daughter ain't gonna have to have no jewelry.
I seen your daughter, and you ain't got nothing to worry about.
This trial has developed into a battle of legal giants. The defense by John Brownstein, and for the prosecution, Mrs.
Now, this is the classic of what's going on now. The reason why I brought this to your attention, and what the confidential informant sent me complements it perfectly, is that they're going to bring in a guy that basically says what they can. And you're going to watch who's the liberal, and you watch who's the conservative. Pay attention to the liberal and conservative aspects of the caricatures.
Mississippi's own Big Ed Garvey. I think Big Ed is entering the courtroom now.
Sorry I'm late, Your Honor, but my wife has the gout and the kid was sticking pins in her feet.
Big Ed Garvey, one of the meanest white prosecutors the South has ever seen. But I see the judge is about to begin his final summation, and the fate of this young colored, a strapping field hand, hangs in the balance.
And before we move on to the summation, does the defendant have anything to say? Taking the Fifth Amendment, huh, boy? Smart move. Will the defense attorney get on with his summation? We don't have an eternity to wait.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the antebellum South, it is indeed a sorry day for the white race and the colored species as well. When a man...
The white race and the colored species. That's the pun to all you evolutionists out there. Don't forget, at the bottom of the evolutionary rabbit hole is that evolution supposed to make the species or the animal or the organisms at least adapt it more to their environment or some sort of benefit aspect.
Man of my stature must come all the way down from the civilized North just to defend this Negro. Negro. What a wonderful word.
Sister Kimberly, welcome to the show. Peace and power. And Brother Anthony, welcome to the show, both of you.
Derived from the Latin negrorum, meaning to tote. Now, say it with me. Negro. How soon we forget what the Negro has done for you. Who picked your cotton? Who tied their hair up in neat little bandanas and sang softly as they wet nursed your little miserable children? Who taught you the meaning of doodah? Hear how soon we forget. But I'm not going to let you forget. We paraded witness after witness before you, attesting to the fine character of this young man. This young man who gave his weekly check to his mother. Now, can you honestly believe that this young man would attack a hunk of steaming white trash like this? No. You're right, the answer is no. Now, I'm not going to beg. I'm not going to plead. I have one last piece of evidence for you I want to bring to you right now. Because on the night of the alleged attack, my client was in jail. And you can't be in two places at once. Now, members of the jury, I want you to look inside your rational minds right now, and I know for some of you that's going to be an impossible task. But I want you to look inside there and bring back a verdict of not guilty. If not, you have proved to me that Darwin was wrong. And I say to you, if you can't find this man not guilty, then let him hang. Let him hang.
I now call on the great Ed Garvey for the prosecution summation.
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jurors.
Oh, no! Oh, no, please! Please, don't hang my son! Please, don't get my son hanged! He's a good boy! I swear! Please.
There he is, Brother Anthony. Welcome to the show. Peace and power. See this right here. Haven't we seen this scene before, y'all? The mother crying over baby boy possibly going to jail, or in this case, his very existence. It was up to a panel of 12 very unsympathetic, one could even argue maybe even hate-filled people. Now, this was way back in the day, but this dynamics is still a part of the process. Let's continue.
And Darcy, that ain't your son. That ain't your son.
It's your son. Your Honor, I believe it's the heat that gets to him, you know, which just is sweltering in here. Must be 115 in the shade and not a piece of shade anyway. Your Honor, you know, a lot has been said about this case, and I want to talk to the shop. Now, shop, they say that this young man was not at the place where the rape took place, but that, how you doing?
That's good, Mr. Brown.
They say that he was in your jail. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, he'd been booked and incarcerated, but the attack was at night. You know how slippery they are.
Slippery is the key word, Your Honor.
And that at night is a key word for the fear of folks slitting people's throats in the middle of the night. That's a part of the process of hate. Now, even though this is a comedy skit, and it was probably progressive at the time, it's given us insight into the situation we literally got going on right now.
Slip or read. I found a book about Houdini in his cell. It's obvious he learned a little trickery from reading that book and let himself out of jail and performed the rape and then let himself back in. Slip or read. I have a sworn statement here concerning the defendant, Your Honor. This is a statement from Jed T. Tubbs, which says on the night of June 15th, he saw the defendant in Carson's Wells Field laying on an anthill nude. And the ants was taking little bites out of him and everything. He went over to help him and he said, "No, thank you, I'm having a good time, just pour honey on me."
Unspeakable.
detestable, if you get my meaning, because we're running short of honey. That explains the honey shortage. And if that ain't enough, when you hear out of the mouth of this dear, sweet angel of mercy, this wonderful flower of this life, this innocent pecan, budding in life, when you get, excuse me, would you tell the court in your own words what happened to you on the night of the 23rd? And if this don't break your heart, Your Honor, nothing on God's earth will. Go ahead.
It was a beautiful evening. The moon was full. The frogs was croaking on the lake.
The frogs were croaking on the lake.
The jasmine was in full bloom. You couldn't have picked a more perfect night for a quiet walk. There it was. I was out on the road, all alone, just me and Toto. We had just eaten porridge at the Three Bears house. And we was walking down the road when this here rabbit and a Cheshire cat jumped out of a tree. And then Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall.
Your Honor, a rabbit, Cheshire cat, Humpty Dumpty.
Your Honor, this man is obviously a master of disguise.
Your Honor, the only thing that's obvious is that this woman is ridiculous.
You see there, Your Honor? A man, a stranger from the north, comes and calls our belle of the south ridiculous. Now I beg you to bring in a verdict of guilty. There's no other verdict but guilty, guilty, guilty. That's 5 guilty.
I can't stand it anymore. I can't let an innocent man go to the gallows. I'm the man who did it. I was with her on the night of August 23rd. It was me. Well, now, I was with her, too. Long about 10 to 9. Me, too.
What in the hell was you doing with her? Your Honor, it's obviously a case of mass hypnosis. Why, the mere thought of him wanting this woman is transferred to the whole community like a virus. Well, the next thing you know, I'll be saying I was with her along about 11:30. Well, if this is allowed to continue and this Negro is free, why, nothing will stop the pace of time. Why, the next thing you know, they'll be wanting appeals. That's right, fair trial and whatnot. That's right, then they'll be wanting to vote. No! And if that...
Boom. There it is. It's all about that vote. Hold on. I got to grab this real quick.
That ain't enough. Someday, they'll be wanting to play baseball.
Great. Now, will the jury set about its deliberations?
Your Honor, we done reached a verdict.
Your Honor,
Yeah. And here's the zinger. Spoiler alert.
that's ridiculous. They haven't even voted yet.
No need to. It's unanimous. We find the defendant not guilty. However, Your Honor, we find this carpet-begging communist pinko Jew boy lawyer guilty of getting him off.
This is just unbelievable. Absolutely incredible what is going on here. They have actually taken this man out. This lawyer.
There it is, folks. In a nutshell, the situation that we're in. Now, this sister is going to break it down in a very crisp and precise point. And I really hope, I reached out to her today. I really hope she comes on as a guest.
The war on drugs. We can really have church up in here now. You know that, right? On the war on drugs, because one of the ways that white rage works is it cloaks itself in reasonableness. We have to keep our community safe. We have to protect our children. We have to ensure safety and security for our neighborhoods. And who doesn't want a safe and secure neighborhood? Who doesn't want to protect our children? It sounds reasonable. But how is it then? Because the research is really clear that we have focused the war on drugs on the population that does drugs the least when it comes to cocaine. The least. And about the same when it comes to marijuana.
Also, news alert. Now, this is coming from a confidential informant overseas. And it really applies to only those who, I guess, don't go to the dispensaries or whatnot. But apparently there is a shipment of tainted weed coming to America. Fentanyl contaminated weed. All right, let's continue.
How is it in the war on drugs we have targeted those who do it the least? How is it that we have spent $1 trillion? That's real money. That's even beyond university money, isn't it? That's with a T. Woo! $1 trillion on the war on drugs. The war on drugs has destabilized state budgets. When you think about public education, I remember when I worked in Ohio for the Board of Regents, one of the things that we were fighting for was to try to get enough state money into higher education in order to drive the tuition down so that more and more students would be able to afford college. Instead, that money went immediately into the corrections budget.
Yep.
You can almost map, like in California, the dollar-to-dollar exchange coming out of the University of California budget, going into the corrections budget. And I just saw a figure that said it costs more now to incarcerate someone in California than it does to send them through Harvard.
But the benefit of that is once they get out of their incarceration, education, they can't vote, they can't get public assistance, and they have to work somewhere or else their ass go right back in most cases.
So this is not an issue of resources. This is an issue of priorities. And so you're asking yourself, now self, because that's how I talk to myself, self, what could drive this kind of thing? Where as a nation, we're spending $1 trillion, where we would destabilize our state budgets, where we would block out access to higher education for our own folk. But then when you realize that the war on drugs really began to emerge after the civil rights movement and those incredible gains. The 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Hard fought for, blood all along the way. But if you have a felony conviction, which is what mass incarceration does, all of a sudden your access to the non-discrimination clauses in the Civil Rights Act, there are things you cannot do with a felony conviction. There are places you cannot live. There are student loans you cannot have access to, so you cannot go to school if you've got that felony conviction. And you want to talk about the right to vote?
In a minute, sister, in a minute. She broke off some stuff for us right there. So see, that's why all that gangster rap was popping so tough. It's a part of the greater plan, y'all. all those people talking about doing this and doing that, coming up this way, coming up that way. Only way they're doing is sending you ass to incarceration and into debt wage slavery. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. And people have no idea that they're really up against this. They only think it's one-dimensional. Oh, it's just the old boy down there at the sandwich shop. No, it's just the cat on the job. No, it's just the chick over there at the hospital. No, it's just the librarian that. No. Like Brother Dick Gregory said, most of the white folks that you're angry at, even if they liked you, they could not help you. What he was ultimately alluding to is that they got your brain with blinders on like you're a mule. And you can only see the hate the whatever way you can look through those blinders. You're not going to feel the bit in your mouth. You're not going to feel the pull of the sternum. And you're not going to really comprehend that you're being motivated without the benefit of at least getting a damn carrot on a stick. It's 360 control. And it started way back in the day. Now let's let the sister continue.
Ooh, let's take Florida. Okay, I hear some folks like, yeah, take it. Let's take Florida. In Florida, Florida has what they call permanent felony disfranchisement. Now, what that means, because it's not quite permanent, but after you serve your sentence and then your time out, like parole, then you have to wait 14 years from that moment to then be able to individually petition the governor asking for your voting rights back. What that means is that when you look at Florida, about 40% of Black men are not able to vote in Florida because of felony disfranchisement. 40%. Overall, for African Americans, is somewhere between 23 to 25% of voting age eligible African Americans cannot vote in Florida. Now, Florida doesn't mind counting their heads when it comes to the census in order to get the number of representatives in Congress.
There it is.
It's just though that those folks do not have any kind of say in who their representatives will be in a representative democracy.
But that's the only problem. A representative democracy is too male misogynist and one female voting on who does the cooking and cleaning. A republic, the ideal republic, if you understood it and thoroughly rationalized it, it's the only way out. Where your individual rights is guaranteed, no matter who's governing the corporation aspect to the nation. Let's continue. And this is what disenfranchisement is really all about. Disenfranchisement, rather, is really all about.
It reminds me of the 3/5 clause. So while I'm talking about the vote, let me just move on to that next piece. In 2008, Barack Obama was elected president of the United States. Seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? And the way that he did it, though, is that Through his organization, that organizing capacity in those communities, 15 million new voters came to the polls in 2008. 15 million. Now, what we say as a democracy is that we love that, because that means then that people aren't.
That means that you're hoping that there might be 3 women to those 2 misogynist males and you'll get it through. And that's crazy. That's not what it should be about. And let me show you this, sisters. This because I had to pull up on the side note here another page. But apparently this is the tweet from Elizabeth Warren. Let me hold on. I hate if I had to get this big. Okay, here it is. Here it is. I got it. All right. And you can't see the confidential informant. Cool. Hold on. And I want to put this in because she's talking some good stuff, but you know, when she starts evoking Obama and starts getting teary-eyed, alarm bells, right? Now check this out, sisters. This is what Miss Warren wrote. And this went down on November 7th. Thank you. At Black Women. But why is it Black Woman X for? I don't know. Black trans and cis women, gendered, non-conforming, and non-binary people are the backbones of our democracy. Hear the code word? And I don't take this endorsement lightly. I am committed to fighting alongside you for the big structural change our country needs. The big structural change. And here's what these people wrote back. Now, I don't know. Hold on, I scooted up to where you guys can see this madness, but all right. Black women. And that looks like a rebel flag, don't it? Don't that look like the Confederate flag, like in muted colors or pigments or whatever? Anyhow, this is Black women presents 100, and we write to endorse enthusiastically and wholeheartedly Senator Warren for President of the United States. Read her full statement. This nonsense. Now I'm not going to go in there and show that, but I want you guys to understand. When you have a woman of this obvious intellect here speaking, and the majority of the stuff she talks about, I believe is right on. I'll be totally honest, right on. But the fact that she cannot see past the allies that she has aligned herself with, basically the Democratic Party or any political party, whether it be the Republicans or Democrat, is kind of detrimental to her overall message. Man, how are you going to sit here and try to say, man, I'm going to try to give you some good stuff, but by the way, you should be sterilized and not have children. Oh, but by the way, you should have weird, perverted sex and ensuring that you don't have children. And I don't even want to get into the religious or spiritual aspects, because then that's where the divide kicks back in. I think we all can agree that at the end of any rhetoric, at the end of any propaganda, at the end of any speech or ideology, concludes with people having weird, perverted sex, or people purposefully and willfully avoiding parenthood, is overall detrimental to the society if you want to really grow and prosper and be resistant to plagues, be resistant to war, and then, you know, even perhaps internal violence. Let's continue.
Aren't alienated, that they believe they have a stake in this nation, that they believe that they have a buy-in. Because what we know is that if you have...
See, that's the whole kick. I'm sorry, the Spirit's moving me. There is no buy-in into a republic. There is no buy-in. You're born into that. That's what's so beautiful about the concept of a republic form of government. This democracy stuff, man, I'm telling you, socialism once again. 2 racist white men and a black man voted on who has to do the shit work. Who has to clean up the shitters? Who have to go to war and die? Oh, I vote you go there, Jimbo. That's the danger. But now we should take what we can from those given good knowledge. And let's turn it back to the sister. I yield my time.
Masses of alienated people in your society. Your society is getting ready to quake. But having people buying in, believing they have a stake, 15 million. And then let me give you some of the data, the demographic data on that 15 million. 2 million were African American. That's almost a third of Atlanta. Think about that in terms of 2 million were Hispanic. 600,000 were Asian Americans. And almost doubling the percentage of those who made less than $15,000 a year. That's also known as IB broke, okay? 15,000. So to almost double that percentage. So think about that. This is a kind of demographic richness. It's the kind of demographic diversity that is really beginning to speak to America. This is the kind of thing we should be embracing, because you get Black folk coming to the polls. The response was massive voter suppression that specifically targeted those very groups. Voter suppression that went after African Americans, Hispanics, Asian Americans, and the poor. Let me give you a couple of examples about the way that this policy works, like voter ID. So one of the things, again, masking itself in is that you've got voter fraud. We heard about voter fraud. We have rampant voter fraud. It's everywhere. And we have to protect the integrity of the ballot box from this voter fraud. Now, Justin Levitt, a law professor out of California, actually ran the numbers, and he found that from 2000 to 2014, there were 1 billion votes and 31 cases of voter impersonation fraud. 31 is rampant. But under the myth, the lie of voter fraud, one of the things that we see coming to the fore is the demand for voter ID. Now, again, it sounds innocuous. We have a major problem, voter fraud. We're only requiring people to have ID. It sounds simple enough. But the way that it works, like in Alabama, let's start with Alabama. In Alabama, in fact, in 2011, Alabama passed a voter ID law. But they knew that this law could not get through the Department of Justice, where Alabama had to have pre-clearance via the Voter Rights Act to get any of the laws that it was changing in terms of voters through the Department of Justice. And so, and what that meant, for instance, is that the Republicans taped themselves saying things like, we've got to figure out how to depress the Black voter turnout. Okay, I'm thinking that's a smoking gun. And you know, we've got these Aborigines and these illiterates who will get on these HUD-financed buses and drive themselves to the polls. So they know that this law is not going to get through the Department of Justice. But the moment, virtually the moment that the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act with the Shelby County v. Holder decision in 2013, Alabama implemented that law. The way that the law works is it says you must have a government-issued photo ID to vote. Okay. And so in Alabama, Alabama's a poor state. It's ranked number 47th or 48th in terms of poverty. That's poor. And so you have a lot of folks in public housing. In fact, 71% of the people in public housing are African American in Alabama. Alabama decided that public housing ID would not count in order to be able to vote. Now, I'm like, I don't think it gets more government issued than public housing. But you see, in that one move, what you're able to do is you're able to wipe away Black folk and poor folk.
And that was the folks that were never intended to vote to begin with. It goes back to a system, Brother West. Welcome to the show. Peace and power cannot fail you if it was not designed for you. So when you have all these stories and all this research about how certain states are taking away the rights and blah, 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 then you should understand, well, perhaps these states are doing what they were kind of designed to do. Protect the opulent minority against the poor masses. This is what you're up against. This is what your forefathers and foremothers have been up against. This is what everyone who has ever fled any war-torn shithole area of the world. This is what everyone who had to bury their baby because he or she was a casualty, collateral damage to some sort of operation by whomever's armies. There's enough of that to go around. And all these little internal games have only one purpose: to ensure the people who have power now maintain it. Now, if you're one of the casualties, or if you're collateral damage, they're not even going to tell you they're sorry. In most cases, you won't even be economically compensated for your troubles. Because if we was a fair and just society, there would be no way 1% of the population controls, as I speak today, 96% of this nation's wealth. And then another 5% controls basically what it boils down to, y'all, is 99% of us is really fighting for 1%. And even at that level, you can see all the wealth that's abound. Now you should get an idea of what a money hoarder truly is all about. This is about limiting your physical enjoyment of this 3D space. It's about straight up hoarding your dreams and forcing you to go through all the gatekeepers to finally reach a decision maker. And God knows what you will have to do to persuade that man or woman to give you back your disinheritance. You are quite literally living on past military victories, past truce and alliances, and all that karmatic debt is building up, yeah. We call them genocides, war atrocities, war crimes. But in all actuality, there are humans carrying out karmatic debt or vengeance or vendettas that's been building up over the eons. And I'll get to the solution to that whole karmatic deal, but I'll wait to the end of this presentation.
By crafting which IDs are acceptable to be able to vote. And this is a mechanism that we will see throughout. Then what Alabama did. Alabama, the governor then shut down the Department of Motor Vehicles in the Black Belt counties. The Black Belt counties are the counties that have a sizable to majority Black population. So when you shut down the Department of Motor Vehicles, then that means that you've got to go a couple of counties over in order to be able to get the ID that you need in order to be able to vote, except you don't have a driver's license. And Alabama is ranked 48th in the nation in terms of public transportation. So you don't have public transportation to get there. Again, it looks innocuous on the surface. But the ways that the policy works, it is designed to destroy African Americans' access to the ballot box. That victory that was won in 1965. I could go on. I really could. Yeah, I'm going to go on just a bit more. Because this stuff is crazy. So you take Texas. In Texas required a government-issued photo ID. Then said your student ID, like from the University of Texas, which would be a state-funded institution university, would not count. But your government, your concealed gun permit would. So your gun permit counts, and your student ID does not. Again, this is a way you can begin to shape the electorate in terms of who has access to the polls. What Texas also did is that only in about 1/3 of the counties in Texas is there a Department of Motor Vehicles. Only in 1/3. And so Texas, in fact, when they were drawing up the law, SB 14, they figured out that for almost 2 million of their citizens, it was going to be about a 125-mile one-way trip to the nearest Department of Motor Vehicles, which means a 250-mile round trip. And so initially in the law, they had, we will reimburse you. But right before that law passed, they drew a line through the reimbursement. So now you have to figure out how to make a 250-mile round trip without a driver's license, without public transportation, to be able to get the card that you need to be able to vote. This is how you shape the electorate. This is how you begin to punish Black people and brown people for voting, and poor people and Asians. This is how you do it. And understand that all of this was done without a Klan cross burning. All of this was done with folks in judicial robes, not white sheets. This is how white rage works. The impact, for instance, of voter suppression in the 2016 election. You know, I talk about that kind of Black pathology language that we have. You know, so after the election, how many of you heard, well, you know, Black folks just didn't turn out to vote? Yeah. Mm-hmm. This was the first election in 50 years without the protections of the Voting Rights Act. Black voter turnout went down by 7%. Voter suppression works. What I'd like to do now is just read a couple of sections from the book. And now I got to get my glasses on because I'm no longer 25. And the one section I'm going to read deals with the war on drugs. And I start off by noting, what Michelle Alexander has done and going through and noting how in key Supreme Court cases, racism has been embedded in the operating code of the war on drugs. Taken together, those rulings allowed, indeed encouraged, the criminal justice system to run racially amok. And that's exactly what happened on July 23rd, 1999 in Tulia, Texas. In the dead of night, local police launched a massive raid and busted a major cocaine trafficking ring. At least that's how it was billed by the local media, which, after having been tipped off, lined up to get the best, most humiliating photographs of 46 of the town's 5,000 residents, handcuffed, in pajamas, underwear, and uncombed bed hair being paraded into the jail for booking. The local newspaper, the Tulia Sentinel, ran the headline, "Tulia streets cleared of garbage." The editorial praised law enforcement for ridding Tulia of drug-dealing scumbags. The raid was the result of an 18-month investigation by a man who would be named by Texas's Attorney General as Outstanding Lawman of the Year. Tom Coleman didn't lead a team of investigators. Instead, he single-handedly identified each member of this massive cocaine operation and made more than 100 undercover drug purchases. He was hailed as a hero, and his testimony immediately led to 38 of the 46 being convicted, with other cases just waiting to get into the clogged court system. Joe Moore, a pig farmer, was sentenced to 99 years for selling $200 worth of cocaine. Kizzy White received 25 years, while her husband, William Cash Love, landed 434 years for possessing an ounce of cocaine. The case began to unravel, however, when Kizzy's sister Tanya went to trial. Coleman swore that she had sold him drugs. Tanya, however, had video proof that she was at a bank in Oklahoma City, 300 miles away, cashing a check at the very moment he claimed to have bought drugs from her. Then another defendant, Billy Don Wafer, had timesheets and his boss's eyewitness testimony that Wafer was at work and not out selling drugs to Coleman. And when the Outstanding Lawman of the Year swore under oath that he had purchased cocaine from Ewell Bryant, a tall, bushy-haired man, only to have Bryant, bald and 5'6", appear in court, it finally became very clear that something was awry. Coleman, in fact, had no proof whatsoever that any of the alleged drug deals had taken place. There were no audio tapes, no photographs, no witnesses, no other police officers present, no fingerprints but his on the bags of drugs, no records. Over the span of an 18-month investigation, he never wore a wire. Now, he claimed to have written each drug transaction on his leg, but to have washed away the evidence when he showered. And I'm thinking either the boy hasn't showered in 18 months. Never mind. Additional investigation led to no corroborating proof of his allegations. And when the police arrested those 46 people and vigorously searched their homes, no drugs were found, nor were weapons, money, paraphernalia, or any other indications at all that the housewife, pig farmer, or anyone else arrested were actually drug kingpins. What was discovered, however, was judicial misconduct running rampant in the war on drugs in Tulia, Texas, with a clear racial bias. Coleman had accused 10% of Tulia's Black population of dealing in cocaine. Based on his word alone, 50% of all of the Black men in town were indicted, convicted, and sentenced to prison. Randy Credico of the William Moseless Consular Fund called Tulia a mass lynching.
Hold on. I want you guys to hear that one more time because I love repeating stuff. You listen to what she said.
Who have written each drug transaction on his leg, but to have washed away the evidence when he showered. And I'm thinking either the boy hasn't showered in 18 months. Never mind. Additional investigation led to no corroborating proof of his allegations. And when the police arrested those 46 people and vigorously searched their homes, no drugs were found, nor were weapons, money, paraphernalia, or any other indications at all that the housewife, pig farmer, or anyone else arrested were actually drug kingpins. What was discovered, however, was judicial misconduct running rampant in the war on drugs in Tulia, Texas, with a clear racial bias. Coleman had accused 10% of Tulia's Black population of dealing in cocaine. Based on his word alone,
There it is.
50% of all of the black men in town were indicted, convicted, and sentenced to prison. Randy Credico of the William Moseless Counselor Fund called Tulia a mass lynching. Taking down 50% of the male black adult population like that, it's outrageous. It's like being accused of raping someone in Indiana in the 1930s. You didn't do it, but it doesn't matter because a bunch of Klansmen on the jury are going to string you up anyway. But this wasn't 1930. It was the beginning of the 21st century with a powerful civil rights movement that had bridged those two eras. And finally, this is in the chapter, How to Unelect a Black President. Black respectability or appropriate behavior doesn't seem to matter. If anything, Black achievement, Black aspirations, and Black success are construed as direct threats. Obama's presidency made that clear. Aspirations and their achievement provide no protection, not even to the God-fearing. On June 17th, 2015, South Carolinian Dylan Roof, a white, unemployed 21-year-old high school dropout, was on a mission to take his country back. Ever since George Zimmerman had walked out of the courthouse a free man after killing Trayvon Martin, and a racially polarized nation debated the verdict, Roof had looked to understand the history of America. Trolling through the internet, he stumbled across the Council of Conservative Citizens, the Tri-C, the progeny of the White Citizens Council of the 1950s that had terrorized Black people, closed schools, and worked hand in hand with state governments to defy federal civil rights laws. Despite the group's avowed racist belief system, in the mid to late 1990s, the group boasted of having 34 members who were in the Mississippi legislature, including then Senate Majority Leader Trent Lott of Mississippi. By 2004, Mississippi Governor Haley Barbour, chair of the Republican National Committee, and 37 other powerful politicians had all attended Tri-C events in the 21st century. Earl Holt III, who was chair of the Tri-C, gave $65,000 to Republican campaign funds in recent years, including donations to the 2016 presidential campaigns of Rand Paul, Rick Santorum, and Ted Cruz. The Tri-C then enjoyed precisely the cachet of respectability that racism requires to achieve its own goals within American society. And its website of hatred and lies provided the self-serving education Dylan Roof so desperately craved. He drank in the poison of its message, got into his car, drove to Charleston, entered Emmanuel AME Church, and landed in a Bible study with a group of African Americans who were the very model of respectability. Roof prayed with them, read the Bible with them, thought they were so nice. Then he shot them dead, leaving just one woman alive so that she could tell the world what he had done and why. "You're taking over our country," he said, and he knew this to be true. Well, not even a full month after Dylan Roof gunned down 9 African Americans at Emmanuel AME, Republican presidential frontrunner Donald Trump fired up his silent majority audience of thousands in July 2015 with a macabre promise. "Don't worry, we'll take our country back." No, it's time instead that we take our country forward into the future, a better future. Thank you.
And on that, I totally agree. Sister Kathy, welcome to the show. Peace and power. Respecting unity. I hope tonight's broadcast sincerely giving you something to think about and consider. Many of you guys are researchers. I know this to be true. And I appreciate you getting inspired by the show, being people who are going to truly make a difference for humanity. Some of your works I probably will never see, but I'm glad to be a part of the inspirational process to help you achieve your fate and your destiny. With that being said, this will conclude TPIM SR Live for tonight. Today's date, November 9th, 2019, the year of our Lord. As always, I ask you to live your life with integrity without hate, envy, or greed. Brothers and sisters, please, let's try to be kinder to one another. Peace in power, unity in victory, and respect in dignity. Liberation. I'm out.